let's give her a few minutes.
What was that, Jeremiah?
Yeah, let's give her a few minutes. She's trying.
Okay.
I think she'll reach out if she decides that she can't make it.
She's saying it won't let her try because you removed her.
Oh,
We can add her back.
she's at iPhone? No.
Can she dial in? Is there like a dial in number?
She should be able to use her phone, right? If she has Zoom on it.
Wonder if I send her invite again.
Tell her to run over to my house. We can get a chair. I get an extra chair in here.
She can come over here, actually. She's my next door neighbor. Trying to send her the link to join on her phone. Sorry, guys. We'll get this going in just a minute.
Oh,
It looks like she joined on the phone. That 720 number is hers.
Can you hear us, Pam?
Hey there, can you hear us, Pam?
Looks like you're still on mute, Pam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, yay.
It's pretty low, though.
Carrie, should I just come over there?
You can come over. Chris, unlock the door for Pam. I'm upstairs in the office.
Too good.
Guys, this is one of the benefits of living in a very small town, right?
No.
Well, I could stay on here like this, but I would like to be able to see everyone. And it says you are not able to rejoin this meeting because you were previously removed by the host.
Jeez. We thought you were just frozen and clocking, so we were trying to help. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you want to come over, come on over. I've got the screen up. It's kind of small on my laptop.
Well, I'd like to be able to join. Is there another way?
Looking at Google, the only way I can do that is to close the meeting and then restart it.
All right, I'm gonna try by a different browser. Hang on.
You should be able to join on your iPhone though, if you click the link I just sent you.
Nope, it wouldn't let me.
Oh, really? All right, well, while you're figuring that out, since we have you on the phone, I think we should probably go ahead and at least get started and get this meeting called to order. Since Brad is not able to join today, I'm going to go ahead and lead this meeting. Carrie Ann, can you please start us out with roll call?
Yes. President Larang is absent.
He's excused.
Excuse, thank you. Vice President Clute,
Here.
Commissioner Nance,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson,
Here.
and Commissioner Tweet.
Here.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Carrie Ann. Moving on to item 1B, modifications, additions, and changes to the agenda. Are there any?
We have
any-
none.
None? All right. Excellent. Then I guess we will go on and open it up to public comment.
Don't see anyone online, but I did receive an email.
Okay.
This is from Mr. Butch Miller. He's posing 3 questions to the commission. If passed, what sort of security is the port going to provide? This is regarding the ordinance that is on the agenda today. If passed, how is the port going to provide security to make sure minors are not participating in a kegger on port property? And he also wants to know, how is this not a conflict of interest for those commissioners who are members of the Gorge Canoe Club?
And I think I can speak to I know we don't typically respond, but I think the one about the conflict of interest probably warrants that. I mean, we've spoken out to our attorney and we've all been through the ethics training, and there's not a conflict of interest if the commissioner doesn't have a financial gain, which belonging to the canoe club is not a place where you would gain financial gain. It's a nonprofit. So no conflict of interest exists there. In regards to the other ones, that's something I can reach back directly to Butch on. I think they're fair questions and I can respond back to him directly.
That works. I mean, my only comment is, what is the security that's there now? What's preventing those same exact scenarios from happening with the current ordinance? So. All right, any other public comments? All right, thank you. Moving along to a special presentation and report by outside resources, staff, and government officials, a Marine Park Trail update from Parametric. So it looks like we have some people on from the Parametrics side of the house. Welcome, and I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. So thanks for your time tonight. And oh, okay, you already got the presentation right there. Great. So my name is Ryan Farncombe, and I've been the project manager for the last couple of years on a project working with the port, looking at the alignment and features for a defined throughout Marine Park. This project is kind of builds on the prior work that the port has done to look at the overpass over the rail and to improve access to the park generally. So this trail project we've been looking at considers that overpass, but then looks at how people would connect throughout the park. Next slide, please. Oh, weird. Some of the text got It's missing there. I wonder if there's going to be. Is it possible for us
Perhaps,
to share the screen?
yeah, would it be all right if I started sharing my screen with the slides?
Now I'm just worried that that PDF has something else that might be amiss.
Yeah, so I will go ahead. Let me go ahead and start sharing. It looks like that's available. And let me get that set up. Can you all see that? And it sounds like we might be getting feedback
Little
from
feedback. Yeah, if you're not
from iPhone.
speaking,
Yeah,
if
I
you're not
think Pam's
speaking, go on
phone-
mute.
Pam's phone
Please.
is still connected and unmuted, so try to mute that 720 number.
Oh, this should be. Can you all see?
Yeah, yes, except it's not in present. There we go.
Okay. I think you've got my whole window. Okay, so
Maybe.
we were here. So please go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks. Technical difficulties abound tonight. Again, Ryan Farncombe, I'm a transportation planner by trade with Parametrics based out of Portland. My colleague Nadine, who is now running the presentation, has been a huge help and worked very closely with us on this project. Stefan right here to our right is our resident engineer who's helped us figure out if some of our lofty planning ideas actually will work or not in the real world. Roy Waters with ODOT has been a contact for us throughout. And as we've had a lot of conversations with the tribes and others around the sensitive nature of the park in relation to archaeological, cultural, and historic resources. And Rob, did you want to introduce yourself? Or I can too.
Rob Whatman, ODOT Project Manager.
Thank you, Rob. So this project has been funded through federal dollars. So ODOT is kind of the overall contract administrator, and Rob has been with us now for a couple of years, helping with this project as well. Next slide. So what we like to do tonight is give you a relatively breezy overview of this project we've been working on for the last couple of years. I know, as I understand it, I think maybe most of the folks on the commission are new and maybe not terribly familiar with this project that we've been working on. So we're coming in at the end of the project. Our contract actually expires next Thursday. So we're just about done with the project, and we really want to present to you our findings and recommendations from this work that we've been conducting for the last couple of years. Next slide. So again, our aim was to develop a trail concept connecting the future rail overpass. Future rail overpass at the south end of Marine Park to the rest of the park, including Thunder Island. So as part of that, we identified several possible alignments, which we'll talk through with you and explain a little bit of our reasoning about why one alignment or the other is a good idea or not necessarily a great idea. But our overall goal is to provide a safe and comfortable space for people to walk, bike, and roll throughout the park. You know, a key challenge and opportunity of this whole work has been, you know, the Marine Park is in a stunning setting, and it has a ton of not just natural history, but also cultural, archaeological, and history. Lots of history in the park, and it's an important and sensitive environmental location as well. So, given the nature of the park, we had to spend a lot of time on this project thinking about how our trail alignments and alternatives would respect all of those resources. I think one more slide for me, Nadine, and I'll pass it to you. So just a quick summary. We've done a lot of engagement as part of this project. We've had a couple of consultation meetings with the tribes, both virtually and actually in person, to understand tribal interests and desires from this trail project. We've had 5 presentations to the Port Commission, along with a site visit with the Marine Park Subcommittee. And then we've also had a couple of online outreach periods to get general feedback from the public and the community and park users about how they use the park and what they might want to see in terms of safe pedestrian and bicycle access. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nadine.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. Again, my name is Nadine Appenbrink, and I'll be going through some of the engagement findings as well as the alternatives, like the trail alignment alternatives that we considered, and throughout identifying the preferred route. So just briefly, we had two engagement milestones. So those were the online surveys. The first one was a bit more general. We asked community members to share with us what they like in a trail and what they might like in a trail in Marine Park. The second one got a little bit more specific as to how people envision using this trail and what's most important as we move forward into design. So what we heard, the top values for this trail would be preserving the land and the water. So really minimizing impacts. We heard that throughout the engagement that we did, not only with the public, but also with the tribes and with other groups. So preservation and then access. So making sure that the trail is accessible to all types of users. We'll go on to milestone 2. We asked a bit more in-depth questions here. We looked at, we heard that people really want to be able to access areas of the park, and an interesting thing came out is connection to the Columbia Gorge, the river, and not necessarily physical access, but the visual access to the river was really important. And so those views, those gorgeous, stunning views, making sure that that's preserved and even celebrated, as well as desire for amenities such as signage, benches, and bike parking. Okay, now we will get into the alternatives that we considered.
Nadine, sorry to interrupt
Yes.
real fast, but I
Yes,
just wanted
absolutely.
to say for the group, we're going to go through this relatively quickly because we want to make sure we respect your time. We know you have an agenda to get through, but please do raise your hand or interrupt at any time if you have a question or anything like that. That's totally great.
I do have a couple of just immediate questions.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you have 2 different surveys. When were they conducted and how many respondents did you have? And were they all specifically from Cascade Locks area?
That's a great question. I don't have the numbers. I know we didn't see a huge turnout on these. I think there were less than 100 on each of them. I could look that up and share that back with Brittany. As far as the respondents, it was a mix of users of the park. So I think we worked with Brittany to identify a distribution list of park users, people who used the campsites in the past, as well as locals. And I believe we also worked through, is it the ODOT, the Columbia Gorge? I'm blanking, Ryan. Is it Tara Lingley's group? I think we
The
also
historic
used,
highway for
thank you. Yes.
historic highway. She helped us reach out to various stakeholders here too.
So
Okay.
we targeted stakeholders as well as residents of Cascade Locks.
Great. And so it sounds, if I heard Ryan correctly, that the engagement ends on Thursday. How long has this been underway?
The engagement was conducted in 2021 and 2022. Those were the 2 phases. Our contract, so Parametrics was engaged with work for this project. Our contract ends at the end of November, so our work will be done. So both engagement phases are complete.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rob has his hand up.
Yes, hi. About when that community survey was conducted, there was one, I believe, December 1st, 2021. If you look at the neighborhood Facebook group, there's a post about that in 21.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on to the alternatives?
I'll have more later.
Great. All right. So I'll cover the alternatives overview, and then I will be handing it over to Stefan to talk a little bit more about the design work that we did most recently. So we, just looking at this map, we sort of looked at the trail alignment options in segments, looking based on the natural environment, the conditions, as well as the different types of uses that are present in the park. So segment 1 is Thunder Island, and then we start up at the top near the beach, segment 2, and then all the way down to 7 down at the bottom end of the park. So we've got a slide for each of the segments. Thunder Island, this notable about this segment will be a gravel path, unlike the rest of the trail, which will be paved. This one will be gravel in order to minimize the subsurface disturbance, as well as to contribute to the more natural feeling environment out on the island. Oh, is this? Here we go. There's a little bit of a lag. Segment 2 is near the beach. So the trail will, oh, sorry, everyone. I'm having a little bit of a lag. Here we go. Hopefully this will stay on this slide. So the trail connects up to the beach, and this segment will be all on paved roads. So there weren't any options that we considered. It was really just one alignment that kept trail users out of the way of cars. So we'll move on to, oh, actually I see a, do I see a hand up? Okay, go ahead,
Oh,
Rob.
yeah. Just a quick question about the gravel trail. Will that
Yeah.
impact ADA access or access to bicycles?
That's a great question. As far as bike access, we expected that there wouldn't really be much bike activity on the island, just because it is a bit more remote and it's really not that long. We expected more bike activity to be in the main part of the park, the mainland part of the park, especially with connections to, you know, other trails. As far as ADA, I might, Stefan, do you have a response to that? Is the gravel ADA accessible?
Two responses. You can the trail itself, we can use a material that is part of ADA accessibility requirements, so that wheelchair users, anyone rolling, it's still accessible. And then the second comment is we didn't place a super high emphasis on it just because there's stairs down to the bridge across and no current ADA accessible access over to that. So this project, and maybe that's something that can be part of future projects, but there's no accessible access to the island as it is.
Okay, yeah, I just curious about that because right now there's also no railing along those edges there. So one of the concerns I would have is, you know, if wheelchair access is available there, and what prevents that from going down the hill on the side there too. So
yeah, so the design itself will be ADA accessible. It'll be a normal 2% crown trail, and we'll use a gravel material that is part of ADA accessible requirements. So
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. Okay, so I'll keep going. Segment 3, this is the first area where we have two options that we considered. So I'll have a slide for each. And what you can see here, we have both this map as well as for the areas where we had different alternatives or different options, we created some photo realistic visualizations or renderings. So what you see here is a photo from our site visits and then a rendering of the boardwalk option here. So this is what we're looking at is 3A. And so this is the roadway that goes right along the marina. And this is our recommended option, the boardwalk. So the boardwalk would provide physically separated space for trail users and would potentially have fewer environmental impacts because the pilings would be somewhat less substantial than the other option, which you'll see in a moment, which is the roadway widening. Some things, some factors here. We actually got a picture with the train going by. So as you all know, the railroad goes right in this area, and Union Pacific does own quite a bit of this land. As well, the boardwalk could be potentially more complicated from a permitting standpoint. So this is the segment 3B option. This is a roadway expansion. So this is just taking the paved surface and expanding out a little bit over this marina area. This would provide a separate space for people walking and biking, would provide an at-grade surface. One of the considerations is that there's no physical separation from the roadway. We know that the roads here aren't, particularly high speed, but it's still nice to have a little bit of physical separation, which was part of the reason we went with the boardwalk option for this segment. All right, so for segment 4, we just had one alignment that we considered. And here we have it coming from that near the marina, tracking around behind the parking, around near the restaurant, and then connecting with the 2 options for, this would be segment 5 over here. We did quite a bit of work in this area to maintain all of the parking stalls so that there wasn't any parking loss. If you have any questions, we can go more into that. We did do turn analysis, and so this has been considered. And again, this segment would also be on existing paved surface to minimize any ground disturbance. Here again, we have 2 options that were under consideration. So segment 5A and 5B. 5A is the one that goes down the center of the lawn area. 5B we'll talk about in just a moment. That goes along the seawall. 5A is the recommended alignment through this portion. It would provide a second path through the area, recognizing that there is a narrower gravel path that's close to that seawall. It provides an ADA accessible route to connect to the pavilion and avoids the potentially costly utility conflicts along that seawall where those hookups are. One of the constraints does reduce lawn space, as we know. So here's the seawall, and here's a picture of that, as you probably all are well familiar. This is a narrower trail or path that exists there now. The option to expand this would require removing these water and electric hookups. It would, let's see, there could potentially be more user conflicts on this area as well. So as I said, we recommend the 5A option. For segment 6, this is the area of the park, also really centrally located between the campgrounds and the lower parking lot that's right adjacent to the locks. So that's where we are. Segment 6A, so option A, would be the lower route around at the same grade as the parking lot. So it would be at the bottom of that slope. And it would go around behind, this is, I think, the restroom building, and it would go around behind that. And as you can see in this visualization, require a retaining wall. This one was eliminated due to privacy concerns and impacts to tribal fishers who typically and frequently use this area in the parking lot. The upper route is directly adjacent to the campsites. And this one was also eliminated due to privacy impacts and just adjacency problems. So this one too would have required a retaining wall. One of the benefits of this one is that it does have really fantastic views right in this area. So views of the gorge would be beneficial here.
Keegan, let's get your medicines.
Oh, pardon me?
Eric, I think you need to mute your microphone, Eric.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So this one also was eliminated, and we have moved to segment 6C, which was the compromise solution between the two, and literally splits the difference, which it goes around the along the slope of this embankment. So this is another boardwalk, and it would connect from near Portage Road around to near where the the pony building is. So it would be along this slope. And it was an acceptable compromise with the tribes, removing people and not adding additional foot traffic in the area where they, want some privacy, and avoiding impacts to the campground site. As with all of them in this whole segment, would require tree removal, and the boardwalk is somewhat more costly than at-grade options, which we'll see in a little bit. I do want to make mention, and we may mention it a little bit later, but based on some really recent work, doing a canine survey in the park, we did make some minor modifications to the connection points between segment 6 and segment 5. That will be included in our final report. It's not included in the slides today. And let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a lag with the slides. All right, so the recommendation, oh, hang on. What can you guys see? All right, this is where we want to be, the recommended alternatives. All right, so as I mentioned, going through these, our recommendations will be the boardwalk near the marina, the central lawn through this central green area, and then the boardwalk through between the campgrounds and the lower parking lot. And those are really the 3 segments where we had considerations. I see Rob's hand up.
Yeah, for the 5A trail that goes through the middle of the big green space, is that going to be passing south of the existing Port Pavilion building there, or is it on the other side, the north side of it?
It is on the.
Looks
It's
like
north. It's closer to the river.
Yeah,
Okay.
it looks
Just
like
those
just
trails
an
figured out.
extension of the current path that goes to the pavilion, and then it will just continue to the playground.
That's
past the
correct.
playground.
So
I
there
see.
is that,
Okay.
that's like a
Yeah,
sidewalk right here, isn't
There
it?
is a little bit of a
It's
gravel
gravel.
driveway there.
It's gravel.
They use it a lot for PCT days when they load in the vendors and stuff. So I was just trying to rethink how that will impact future stuff. But
Hopefully it'll make it more convenient because it'll be an option. I mean, it'll be a paved route.
right. And then for 6C, you said all these 3 options. It seems like 6C is the most reasonable option, but how much tree removal are we talking about here?
I think the 6C is definitely, I think it may impact the most number of trees. I don't know that we did a count for any of those. They all would require fairly substantial tree removal just based on that slope. Unfortunately.
Well, I'll also mention, and if we can get that commission's perspective on this, is that when we've talked with the commission in the past, there was the discussion was that the tree removal was not a major concern, basically, for the Port Commission. Maybe Brittany can help me remember off the top of my head what the reasoning there was, but that was the conversation we've had in the past with the commission about that.
I believe there was.
Yeah, I only bring it up because the trees out there are pretty sizable. They're not, they're actually kind of landmarks to the area. So.
And they provide a significant amount of shade and just a great view and just a great experience for a lot of our campers. So while the previous commission may have been okay to just chop them all down, I think there might be some difference of opinion with us.
Yeah, the last time you met with the commission was probably before July, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah.
And we were going to transition into some trail sections so we can talk about trees there, but I'll have a few things to say. I think it's a good segue into the trail sections. And if none of you remember, I'm the engineer on the project, and you can probably tell by the visuals as they're not as nice as Nadine's slides were. But I will run through these quickly, and maybe we can stop on the boardwalk sections because those are a little bit more interesting. But in general, this is a 10-foot wide trail throughout the length of the park that is Thunder Island included. So segment 1, the Thunder Island section, is a 10-foot wide trail. This is the only section that will be gravel. And as you had asked earlier, Rob, we can make that ADA accessible per slope requirements, per gravel thickness requirements. I won't spend too much time on that. Segment 2 up at the parking lot is kind of at existing pavement. There'll be a little bit of restriping, and again, it's a 10-foot wide trail there. So next slide, Nadine. Segment 3A, this is our first kind of interesting cross-section alternative. So this would be the boardwalk option that goes, it kind of threads the needle between that existing roadway up on the right side of the screen there and the existing marina dock down at the bottom. So it would essentially hug the slope there. Our structural engineer, we've asked him for some opinions on boardwalk types, and he thought a single pier boardwalk here, as you can see, made the most sense just from an environmental impact and from a cost impact. So that's concrete columns, concrete pier, and then kind of like it's a steel decking on top that's kind of like a grippier pattern. So if it gets wet, but all of those things would be fleshed out further at final design. I'll pause there. Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, this is probably going to be a very popular spot for our 4th of July fireworks show. You know, I can envision a lot of people hanging out on this. So the one thing I would make sure is the load capacity could handle, you know, something full with a bunch of people on it. And then the other security issue of people trying to jump from the railing to the actual secured marina boardwalks in there. So I don't know what the difference is between that railing and the marina boardwalk there.
That's a great point. I didn't think about people jumping down, but now that you say it, that makes sense. In terms of load rating, I think we would definitely that would be designed for I guess at a fireworks show when you have lots of people on there, may have to up the load rating a little bit, but I've made those notes and we can bring those back to the structural.
Awesome.
Also, just a quick question, does this design inhibit any of the current boat parking at the marina? Like taking away any of the spaces from the current boats parked there?
Nope. There may be a reconfiguration required to the stair access there, just as the trail connects. So kind of right where that blue and red line connect up. But everything would stay to the far side of that existing marina dock. And as far as I know, there's no boat parking on that other side of the dock. So segment 4, this is through the Sternwheeler restaurant parking lot. This would be kind of on existing pavement again, 10-foot wide, 2-foot shoulders. And like Nadine had mentioned, in that segment, we looked at a reconfiguration of parking stalls. So a lot of them may shift in a little bit. And with this project, you could do a restriping and actually make the parking stalls work, if anything, a little bit better in that area. Segment 5 is the central lawn, and as we had talked about earlier, it kind of follows that existing path alignment, stays on that northwest side of the pavilion, and then continues along through the center of that open space. Again, 10-foot wide trail, 2-foot shoulders on each side, 10-foot wide paved trail. So this is an asphalt trail through the whole thing, except for the boardwalks and Thunder Island. Next slide. So 6C, this is our boardwalk alternative through kind of the campground area, and this may be a little deceiving with how those trees are, and we can talk about the tree impacts there. The center boardwalk would be this would be likely a timber boardwalk with timber posts on both sides, so it would kind of fit into the aesthetic of the park a little bit better there and reduce cost a little bit with the timber option. And we don't have exact tree counts. The benefit of a boardwalk, actually, even though it's running kind of straight through where those trees would be more so, you can thread the needle a little bit more and you can have some sway. And that's another reason for timber versus like a concrete material, is you have some sway to kind of thread the needle through trees a little bit better. You can go down and back up versus the at grade options of the first two. If you're on the top and you have a retaining wall, like everything's coming out. You can't, the retaining wall is where the retaining wall is. And same with at the bottom. So I'm not saying that trees won't be taken down. I'm saying that I get that concern as well. And I'm the same way. Those are nice, mature trees. And it's not like you can plant back a fresh tree and it grows.
And
the same.
And also, to be clear, we didn't mention this up front, right? This is by no means the final design of the trail,
Yes.
right? We have taken this to kind of an advanced conceptual stage, and there's absolutely more work to be done to actually do these designs and have more nuanced conversations about, like as Stefan says, how you would thread the boardwalk through here or the other design elements as well. Sorry, Rob, looks like you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was curious about the timber boardwalk. What's the lifespan of that versus going with the concrete, and maybe the cost difference too?
That is a great question, and one I would have to lean on the structural engineer for. So he is very familiar with this project as well, and he kind of came up with these two alternatives just based on what would fit the best. I believe timber is cheaper, and I don't think there is a performance lifespan reduction in timber as far as I know, but I can't say that for sure.
We can follow up with him and ask that question.
Yeah.
On that same vein, you mentioned potential on the boardwalk that's, I believe it's 3, that being steel. Was there an intention or a reason that one would be steel, whereas this one would be timber? Is there a reason that they're not both the same?
Yes. In terms of aesthetic and performance. So the 3A would actually be concrete, like concrete piles, and then just the decking is kind of like a steel, and we can follow up and provide pictures of some of these. But it's kind of a steel decking surface that, just because of the proximity to the water there, it's like a kind of a slip resistant surface. So it's mainly performance on that one. And then this timber is an aesthetic and, again, a performance. It's easier to kind of, flex is the wrong word, but like I said, adjust the kind of alignment of the trail if you're trying to avoid like a tree or something like that. So those are the reasons why they're different. But like Ryan had mentioned, these are by no means final. And if there's a different aesthetic preference, or as design gets further along, a different performance need, then I think these are by no means final. They're definitely subject to change.
Right. Because we get a lot of rain out here and a lot of snow. So I totally understand the traction part of it. And I like that. I was just curious why there's a separation of those two.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I didn't touch on segment 7, but it pretty much just follows it's another 10-foot wide trail, 2-foot shoulders, and kind of goes behind or runs right along the Portage Road there and connects in, I believe, to the parking lot that is, I forget what that building's called. And then you
the
can
industrial, yeah.
And you can see, as Ryan mentioned at the beginning of this, you can kind of see on the graphic, it's very small, but the future overcrossing work. So again, that's tying into the whole reasoning behind the project of improved pedestrian movement through the park. It's designed to take you all the way from, if that overcrossing is built, all the way from there down to the beach at the very end of the park. So
Rob,
yeah.
regarding the color and the painting of the trails, is there going to be like bright green bike paths like you see in Portland, or are they going to be like naturally fitting into the area?
Naturally fitting into the area, and that was something that the last commission, both of the last presentations we had, was aesthetic is definitely key in this area.
Right, aesthetic, and also it really hampers the filming industry as well. Green is not a good color to have in the background if you want to do commercials or wedding stuff and all that. So
yeah, and again, tying back to that, this is just a preliminary concept. Those materials, we've assumed asphalt through all of this. There's going to be more costs, but you could get crazy with different kinds of materials if it's, you know, brick pavers or all sorts of stuff. So those decisions can be.
I mean, I was kind of hoping a few little Sasquatch stamps here and there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is our favorite thing to talk about is costs, and I know we all perk up on this. I want to throw a disclaimer on at the front that this is a planning level estimate, and so we usually assume a wide sway of where these costs may end up as final design decisions get made. And also that this is just material construction costs. So this price you see at the bottom doesn't include permitting, traffic control, contingencies, surveying, final design and construction engineering. Like those are all contingencies that we could throw a percentage on at the end that will add significantly to this number. But we did break it out per segment. And you can see just from a quick glance that those boardwalk sections are the big dollar amount sections. And those, so these are estimated costs for our preferred alignment. We did do preliminary costs for all of the alternatives, and I will say even these boardwalk sections, if we were to do a retaining wall costs giant retaining walls end up almost just as much as a boardwalk. So if you're like, why are we doing a boardwalk when we could just do an at-grade trail? It's actually, that's not a huge difference. These are just tough sections.
Well, and to be looked at, we looked very hard at-grade trail sections in both 3 and 6, and there was not a great solution for a whole variety of reasons. And you know, while the boardwalk sections are the pricier elements of this whole project, you know, we didn't put pricey elements into this project just for the sake of having pricey elements, right? I think these boardwalk sections are really kind of marquee sections of this trail, and something that will really enhance the character of the park overall. So that I think underlies our recommendations here throughout. Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. This all looks great. I really like the design on the arena fire lane. I think that's going to be an interesting piece to have during our fireworks show. as far as old history on this project, I think back in 2012, the city has some park space that's over by the post office in downtown, and they were thinking of having an overlook crossing that goes over the railroad and down the stairs and into the park that would lead, I think, over by the campground, if I'm not mistaken. But this project kind of looks at that as a potential phase down the road, potentially, right? With where this trail goes through the campsite.
It's a little hard to hear you, Rob. You're very, very low. I don't know if it's just my computer,
Yeah,
but it seems like you were referring specifically to the crossing that they mentioned in that section 7, which is going from the parking lot over the railroad down to, yeah, there it is, future overcrossing.
That
That's going
future
over to
crossing,
basically where
Yeah.
building 3 is at.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask a little bit more about that. If you had more details about that, what's in consideration for that number 7 trail?
Specific to the trail, it will be aligned behind the parking here, by the as it's Nance, sorry, Mr. Nance said, by building 3, and it will connect back over to this parking lot over by the, I believe it's the industrial building back here. As far as the overcrossing, it goes from the park up on Winapa, and it goes over the rail, and then it will connect. And I believe it has like a fairly long ramp that will be on the other side.
And this will not be part of the ODOT project at all, right? This is something the
It's
city
a
would have to
separate effort. Rob or someone else from ODOT might have a better, Rob Watman.
Well, I'll just
Oh,
jump
go
in and
ahead,
say,
sorry.
so that actually the funding for this trail work was kind of left over from the funding for the overpass work. So that overpass funding, we've gotten a lot of mileage out of. And there's a whole separate report on the overpass and renderings of the preferred design and all of that.
Okay, thank you.
And that was kind of the end of my section, so we'll kick it back to either.
I think it's Dean, I think it's, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, before we get to that, I guess 2 primary questions going back to estimated costs. I saw, I guess further on down the line, we'll probably get to one of these slides later, but just as far as the funding elements are concerned, it looks like it says local, state, and federal. So I guess as far as funding all of this, I don't know if you guys are the people to be asking this, or if the general manager is the person to be asking this, but where do we see these financials coming from? And then I guess more specific to you all, I lost my train of thought because I went down over there.
No additional sources of funding have been found for this project.
Okay.
So after this step, we don't have a particular direction that we've spent during the time that they've been working on this project. This port has not been looking for additional opportunities to fund this project, at least actively. Doesn't mean that we're not always passively aware of the options that are out there for us and that we could potentially get ourselves involved in, but we certainly haven't found one that's been a good fit as of yet. It certainly doesn't mean we can't, but we haven't at this time.
Okay. And then the other question that I was going to ask was specifically around, it sounds like at 2 and 3 section 2 and 3, that we would need to involve Union Pacific for some of that. And if that's the case, what does that kind of look like to us as a port? Yeah, what is that current relationship with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Railroads are.
What do we want Jeremiah to chime in about the port relationship first?
I mean, I can chime in just generally on the relationship with the railroad and anyone. They're a difficult partner. They answer to almost no one and move at their own speed. that would be a relationship that we would need to identify, strengthen, and work on considerably.
Okay.
But again, doable, but not something that we've actively done. There was time where we talked about flying out and meeting their executives and sort of working on that. And it really might take that level of interaction to get their attention and their partnership in this. It is never an easy endeavor with the railroad.
Right. Okay.
And I'll just add that, you know, the marina parking lot is a very minimal, it's a low touch investment, right? Which we're mostly talking about striping. So the interaction with the railroad there is probably not a lot, frankly. And then the boardwalk itself, I believe, is entirely out of Union Pacific right away, as far as we know.
Yes, and we'd need a right-of-way retracement from a surveyor to know exactly where that line is. But that was, I don't know if we included that in the benefits, but that was another benefit of the boardwalk versus extending the roadway. Because as far as I know, like as far as I can see on a GIS line, their right-of-way line goes over that whole roadway.
Yeah.
So
that was another compelling reason for the boardwalk. If I had $1 for every project I've had where one of the primary benefits of an alternative is don't have to deal with the railroad, I'd have a lot of dollars. So
you're saying there's a chance.
exactly. So we have a few slides here on just some of the, I won't read this all to you, but we just wanted to capture for the commission's sake some of the feedback we heard from the prior commission, since they did inform our findings here. But back in 2021, we had an introduction with them and a lot of discussion about the reconfiguration of the parking lot, which we've talked with you today, and we landed on an alternative that actually doesn't reduce the number of parking stalls and still works for all the turning movements that need to happen out there. So that was a big point of discussion then. We also met in November. This is that meeting, we did talk a lot about what we just talked about in terms of the marina parking lot and how we navigate the trail through there. Next slide. Sorry, I'm breezing through this. I know you guys have this, so I don't want to read every sentence to you. And then earlier in 2022, that's where we got down to brass tacks about the recommendation, which we went through tonight. And some of the recent work we've done helped refine a few bits of the alternatives. I'll talk about that in just a second here. Next slide. There you go. More Port Commission feedback in 2022. And more recently, you know, as we've collaborated with Roy Waters, we mentioned earlier, and had a lot of interaction with the tribes on this project. And one of the things we heard from the tribes was a concern about the potential presence of historic human remains in the park. And so we were able to add some funding to this project and have a canine forensics team come in and do a survey of the park. And that survey was completed in September. And the findings from that survey influenced our recommended alignment that you've seen here tonight. So that's that survey was very valuable in helping us refine that and also just continuing a good partnership with the tribes in terms of this overall effort. And then in this past month, as we're racing towards our contract completion, we've also developed some trail lighting standards, which the port has. That is actually a document that I hope has life for the port beyond just this trail, that the lighting standards proposed, and there might be something that could be implemented or useful park-wide as updates are made. And then next week, before we're finished, we're going to provide our final preliminary design of the trail, our cost estimates, and a memo that kind of reviews all of the alternatives work that we discussed with you here tonight. Next slide. So in terms of implementation, and as we said, we have kind of taken this to a certain early level of design. More work is needed to advance this design. and to achieve environmental clearances, including likely through the NEPA process. Continued coordination with the tribes would be needed as more nitty-gritty design decisions are made. In terms of actually implementing the trail, we've already talked about this a little bit. There are a lot of different potential opportunities. A couple that come to mind right off the bat are one, there is a nexus with this trail and the park to the historic Columbia River Highway. And I think coordinating with ODOT on that is a potential path towards funding some of this, knowing that historic Columbia River Highway users also use Marine Park. And so enhancing that connection might be compelling from a funding partnership standpoint. And I'm not speaking for ODOT here, to be very clear. These are Ryan's musings. And then a couple other programs. There's the Oregon Community Paths program, which is a recent state level trails funding program. The kicker with that program is that the trail needs to serve a transportation purpose, which we have asserted that this trail would. And so the next grant funding round actually opens up, I think, summer 2024. So there's a dedicated pot of around $35 million a year in that funding pool. There's other sources, I won't go into them at the moment. But the trail has been segmented partly so that it can be implemented over time, and that you have sections of the trail built that have independent utility so that they actually serve a function without the rest of the trail necessarily being built at the same time. I think, is that our last slide? Yeah. So any other comments, questions, or feedback for us?
I just want to thank you for providing this presentation. It was great learning for me. This is the first I've really heard about this project. So coming in new to the commission, it's good to have all of this information, and then we can discuss as a commission our path forward.
Great, thank you.
I'm good. I have no additional questions. Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks again for all your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great holiday.
Likewise. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I think that concludes our number 3 item on the agenda. So moving on to the consent agenda. We've got the approval of minutes from the meeting on October 17th and for the special commission meeting on October 23rd and 24th, 2023. We've got the ratification of bills in the amount of $51,754.39 and approval of payroll for October 19th, November 3rd, November 17th, for a total of $124,578.56. So I would totally entertain a motion to approve this consent agenda. I can't even talk. A motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a second?
I'm gonna let you take it, Pam.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor to approve the consent agenda in its entirety? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Moving on, business action items. So item 5A is authorizing the second reading of the Port Ordinance -1, an ordinance regulating conduct on port property by title. This is one, Jeremiah, that requires a motion and a second to get the authorization to read it by title.
You're muted.
We'd be looking for a motion to read it by title. We also really could make a motion to read it by title and then approve. It could be in a single motion.
Okay.
If we wanted to.
I think I'm good with that. I'm not able to make any motions as the lead here tonight, so I would, if anybody wants to make a motion to authorize and approve the second reading, and the ordinance by title, ordinance regulating conduct on port property by title. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a move.
Go ahead, Albert. I'll let you have this.
Okay. I think I know who's gonna second. I'll make a motion to approve to conduct the second reading and to read ordinance number 2023-1 regulating conduct on port property by title only.
I'll
So
second that.
That's a motion to authorize the reading and to approve the ordinance, or just to authorize?
Oh,
the
and
reading?
approve. Yes, and approve.
Okay. And Rob, you second that?
I will second that.
Great. All right. So all of those in favor to authorize the second reading and approve the ordinance 2023-1, an ordinance regulating conduct on port property by title, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And anyone opposed?
I still oppose for those in the community.
Thank you, Pam. All right, by a vote of 3-1, I think it still passes, correct? We still have,
Correct.
okay. All right, is there anything else we need to do on that one, Jeremiah?
Very good. You guys read it by title within the motion, so you're good to go.
Perfect. All right, and item C is next up to approve the 2023-2024 Cascade Locks Historical Museum grant request for no more than $20,000.
At the last meeting, Janice Crane had made a request for $30,000 from the Port of Cascade Locks. After some discussion, it was recommended that I go back and come back with specific numbers that I thought would fit within our budget and still leave us room to make other decisions that we may need to in terms of ways to spend that money or that you guys saw fit. So my recommendation would be that we provide the $20,000 to the museum. That leaves me $15,000 allocated towards the fireworks. And then with the additional money, which I thought I had in here, I believe it's close to $4,000. That'll leave us for other events or other groups that come and make requests of us. We wound up not doing a Christmas event this year, so we wound up saving some money there. So there does leave money left over for us to be able to do that.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the grant request for Cascade Locks Historical Museum for the 2023-2024 year for no more than $20,000? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I have a question. Do we have to motion to discuss, or can we discuss before motioning?
Typically, you want to get a motion on the floor and then discuss and then vote.
Okay.
But discussions happen beforehand all the time, but that would be the correct.
No, we always do it backwards.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve the 2023-24 Cascade Locks Historical Museum grant request for no more than $20,000.
And then just sort of a point of order here, if we didn't get a second, then we wouldn't discuss. So that's just for future how we would sort of run that.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right.
And just as a point of order, sometimes you second things, not because you plan on voting for them, but because you feel like it's worth a discussion. So that's only if we want to do it in order. It goes out of order all the time and it's not a big deal, but just a heads up.
Sounds good.
All right, I have something to say. Like I said before, I completely support the museum, but at this point, I feel like I just have to go off of a trust that Jeremiah says that the budget is what it is, and we don't have optics into what else is in that pocket for the budget. So there could be some other things that we would like to build on, and this is just a little sliver of information. and I don't know that I have enough information to even want to make a vote on it, yay or nay.
So within this bucket was the 53,600. And within that, to date, we've spent 14,201. That includes some money that I have to spend on the 4th of July. That spent some money that we included to do the community picnic. And then that includes the money that you guys gave to McKay. Typically what goes in this bucket of money is the Energy Council gets some of it and the museum gets some of it. And when this was budgeted, it was based on the last commission's budget, which was definitely going to include those two things. How much sort of depended on how much we could put in the bucket at that time, but this was generally similar to what we had done the previous year.
So where is Christmas lights? Where is that in the budget? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where.
This would come out of this would come out of the same place. So when we budgeted this year, we didn't look for budget. Christmas lights were probably not something we were going to include because we bought so many Christmas lights the year before. We expanded it. Last year we bought 3 or 4 different displays for it.
That's
So I didn't
not the
include.
point. Yeah.
But this budget expires in June, right? And we get a new one. So we'll start
Correct.
creating that, and we can
Correct.
create a new budget to include more Christmas lights.
100%.
Or July,
Or all
July.
sorts of stuff. Yeah, no, you guys will direct this next budget and how much goes in this pot and the places you expect to expend it and the things you expect to expend it on.
I appreciate Pam's perspective on this too. It was a little uncertain to, I guess, we're looking at the history of the grant monies that the museum has received in the past. It seemed like it was a growing trend going upward, and this is a little bit of a step back. But also you have to take in light that we had the COVID pandemic, and there were some things that we helped cover during that time. I'm okay with the $20,000 personally for the museum. I know they probably are going to get some more funding too through either the Sternwheeler or the ACL contract, from what I understand.
I have a question. I don't mean to interject, but I just want to clarify that $14,201.43 that's been spent on from this account to support 4th of July, the community picnic, and Energy Council. Was any of that spent for the upcoming 4th of July, like for 2024, or was that this previous 4th of July?
The previous 4th of July.
Okay.
So we'll buy the fireworks for this coming 4th of July still in this budget. We have to pay for them ahead of time, and then any soft costs that come around the 4th of July that we expect, what we have to do with parking or with just the costs that get associated with the 4th of July for the actual party itself, come out of that. There wasn't a tremendous amount that gets spent there. We spent some money on security. Can't recall what other expenditures, but there weren't a lot that came out of that for the 4th of July, but that's where they would come from, and that's where they came from.
They also, I also kind of questioned about Janice being hired by the city to work for them as the staff tourism, and she is funded for that. However, she hasn't. It was supposed to be somebody for the position, and she hasn't done that yet. So it's just, this is a tough one because I don't feel like I know enough.
I guess my question for you, Pam, is what do you need to know to support the museum then?
I support the museum 100%.
Okay.
It's how much money we give to them. And like Carrie said, the history of, or was it Rob that said the history of the payments to the museum? I don't, unless we have that in the budget, which we don't right now, it's taken from a bucket. So either we fix this,
created in mind for providing money to the museum, I think,
I'm
right?
sorry, I apologize. I don't see who's talking. I thought Pam was chatting.
Oh, we're sitting right next to each other. Sorry.
Yeah. So Pam, do you want to finish your comment, please?
Sorry.
So the bucket is for what, July 4th, Christmas, is the museum considered in this bucket, or is this bucket just an extra bucket? And if we want to make these large contributions to the museum, perhaps we put it in our forecasting budget, a certain amount, instead of funding whatever dollars we think is fine. I think it should be budgeted for, cared for, and not come with, please help with my salary. Because there's much more going on with the museum and what she is doing for the museum. So there are just questions that, do those questions sync with you at all, Albert?
I'm a little confused myself. I know
Yeah.
there's some changes at the tourism committee on the city side, which I believe you were a part of at some point. That shakeup is changed now where I think I understand Janice is in charge of representing tourism direction now or something.
Well, she was going to hire someone. She was going to hire
someone
someone for that position and didn't. So she is now getting that $25,000
The city is from the city funds. Okay.
from the city to
as far
Janice,
as
right?
us as a port, to make this decision as a port, giving money to the museum, we haven't given anything this year to the museum, so this is our opportunity to do that.
Right, but without knowing how much she actually needs, how do we provide the right number to give?
Typically, there is some expectation that they will come with the amount of money that they need. This is the way that the Energy Council did. They came to us with an amount that they were requesting. So when Janice came with the amount of requesting 30, like I looked at my budget and realized I didn't leave enough in there for fireworks and the $30,000 and what we had done with the community picnic and what maybe we were going to have to do with Christmas. So that became the recommendation of 20, but it would fall more on, with these questions, and she's in the audience, it would definitely fall on the museum to sort of explain why they needed that funding, or what that gap was going to fill.
And what she told us was it was for her salary.
Correct. That's sort of always been the understanding from the funding that the port provided. And again, she's in the audience, so I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I know that for most nonprofits, it's a struggle, especially with the museum, to fund people's salaries. A lot of folks want to make donations and say, oh, cool, add to the collection. Oh, cool, do this thing. But when it comes to funding the salaries, and that's just from the community at large as well. Like if I donate $1,000, I definitely want to add to the collection. I don't necessarily know that I want to pay Janice's salary, which is why she comes to us, is because this is a harder set of funding to get. A lot of the funding that she gets, as far as I understand, comes with it, can't be used for those sorts of things. So that is a gap that we fill because she's asked us to in the past, and because we've said we would in the past.
Okay, so next year, whenever she comes and asks for 50,000, are we just going to look at our budget and say, okay, we can finagle this much, or do we want to put something on books and say museum will get $30,000 or $15,000, $20,000 each year from us? Is that something that we as a commission want to commit to for budgeting forecasting purposes, or do we want to leave it up to what we're able to do?
And as a member of the museum board, I have seen the budget and their spending and everything. And I think that's something that should be part of the presentation to us when requesting money.
Yes.
So it's not just a lump sum, but hey, this is how the museum operates. This is our current fiscal year budget. And this is why we need this money. I think having a little bit more detail would just benefit and then allow us to budget appropriately for future years as well. Because the last meeting I went, well, the only meeting I've unfortunately been able to attend so far did go over, and I think each meeting does go over the budget month over month. So it's really interesting information, and yeah, if we're going to be donating money to the museum, it would be good information, I think, to have as well, just to make sure. I don't know. I mean, I guess to give the warm fuzzy that the money is going and being appropriated appropriately, and we're not just throwing out random numbers.
As a first time seeing it, that's what I would like. I mean, after so many years of being on a commission and you know what's coming up, it may not be that same issue with me, but
Yeah, I mean, there's
what I-
definitely a certain amount that goes into the fact that you guys weren't part of the budgeting process during all of this. So not having that visibility on how we got here, I certainly understand it. I certainly understand that we didn't have a discussion around if you guys now were to say, hey, we're committing to $15,000 every year or whatever that number is, plug it in. Yes, that certainly helps. That certainly helps with the budgeting process. You now all of a sudden know this is not a place that this commission is going to be able to, is going to allow me to pass a budget that is variable. This is something that stays. Within this bucket, this is always a place where we pulled a little bit and gave a little bit. Like we want to fund this as high as possible, but we haven't always. At one point in time, $2,000 came out of this and went to the different businesses in town to support them during COVID. So it's been used for a number of different reasons, and it's changed a little bit over time. But I believe during the budget process, you guys will very much have a say in direction that you'd like this money spent. So it makes sense.
And with that said, and the knowledge I do have about the museum budget from the one meeting I attended, I know they're running a little low this year. And I wouldn't hesitate to approve the 20,000 as it stands now, and then just make sure we're planning better for future budgets.
thank you. And that's really all I wanted, was a discussion around it to bring it to light so we can prepare better in the future for it. Thank you.
I have two quick questions. I attended the original budget discussions and was part of it, and I totally forget this bucket. Was there a specific amount that was already allotted to the museum, or was it just a lump? Like everything was we were just like in this bucket.
Right. So the 53,600 is initially what went in there. One of the pieces that doesn't really flex is the $15,000 on fireworks. That one is just like, we know that's what's going to cost. We know we're going to do it every year. So the 15's got to go in there. The community picnic has been coming out of that fund. That is somewhat of a new event that continues to grow. And so there was a little thought of went into, well, if it gets bigger this year, because turnout gets bigger, so we'll put a little money in there. What have we previously given to the museum? And then you start going through the rest of your budget and looking for places where, man, maybe I need to pull some money out and put it somewhere. This is one of the first buckets with the previous commission, this is one of the first buckets that we would probably look to and say, yeah, again, I sort of guesstimated that who my commission was going to be at this time and really did expect us to give $5,000 to the Energy Council. That one I got in there. I was like, it's definitely going to be 5,000. So within sort of that budgeting, it's a place we pull from. It's certainly a place that if my budget's not balancing in a way that I'm happy with, I'm going to look at this fund and say, can I pull some back from here? Is it going to be a bummer for me to tell Janice, 20 this year instead of 30? It's absolutely going to be a bummer, but it's my budget to balance and your guys is to approve. So how much goes in there in the coming year, in the next year, that will definitely land with you guys. I certainly went through a process to get to this 53.6. It wasn't just 53.6. That sounds good, right? It was based off last year and some projections.
Right. And I guess I have two follow-ups. One first, what did we give last year again? Do you remind me?
28, 27, something like that.
29, I believe.
29.
Is that a thumbs up, Janice, on 29? Thank you.
And then I guess the follow-up to that is like, if we're gonna go lower on this one, did we just not anticipate there being a consistent, when the budget came through, we're not consistent, we would not expect like a consistent request?
Well, it's changed over time. I generally had an idea that it would be in the neighborhood of $30,000 based on the 29 last year. I think me and Janice maybe had a discussion previous to this around what the expectation was, but I definitely didn't stick $30,000 and ear tag that for anybody. Like you guys, right?
I gotcha. I guess then a couple of follow-ups, like with the 30K, like say we say 20 now, is there availability to pull 10K from somewhere else to make the 30K a reality?
Not without a budget adjustment, but yes. And we can definitely, we can move funds, but there would require a budget adjustment.
Okay.
Or, again, I left some money in there, right? I left about $4,000 in there for you guys to make some other decisions. I mean, I could get less fireworks. There are things that I can do for sure. Like if this money was there to be spent in a particular sort of way, if you guys say we want 30 to go to the museum, that's sort of my problem to solve and bring to you with my solutions down the road.
Right.
Absolutely. This would just be my recommendation of with 20, I can kind of still see everything fitting and making it work. Doesn't mean it has to. I can go back to the drawing board.
Right. I guess just from my point of view, like knowing that we gave 29 last year, and then knowing that every year since COVID, we've seen increased tourism, we've seen increased need. Sure, the sternwheeler is going to be giving a little bit of money to the museum, but
I think the sternwheeler is, that's American Cruise Lines.
oh, okay. Either way, we
I made that same assumption last meeting.
we still anticipate an increased amount of money for museum through like tourism, which is going to be great. But to me, it's like the museum is there, it has a need, it has real dollars that are behind it that need to be given, and as part of an element of the community and an element of the port, it just feels like a huge, like, I don't even know the right word for it, just to go to decrease the funding. It just seems like a bad situation.
Well, is it something we can revisit too? Like maybe make up for that extra 10 grand in our next budget? Because it's still within that budget season.
Your fiscal year, I don't know how that lines up with her current needs, but I'm sure she would love to have an additional $10,000 next year.
I mean, if fundraising efforts and stuff fall flat before then, and grant writing and whatnot, because there's definitely other avenues to make up that 10 grand, but it's maybe something we can consider when we're writing our new budget as well.
And it's also a consideration of this commission at which level they want to engage in that business. Janice has a board of her own that is looking to solve these decisions and that direct her on how to sort of do so. I want to make sure that we are respectful and aware that that board is making decisions on how best to move this forward, and that she goes out and executes on the directives that she's given, one of which is to fundraise and to approach these entities. We're not the only entity.
No, I'm not saying that we should do that. I'm just saying like there are other avenues for her to get that extra, make up those extra funds. It makes it more difficult for sure, but it is something we can consider when we're writing our new budget as well. If she approaches us again with additional need. So take note, Janice.
Yeah, if we were to fund the full 30,000, as Albert was talking, that would leave 9,398 left. We always have the ability to approach the city and ask them if they'd like to contribute more to the firework fund. They usually contribute about $5,000 to it, so there are ways around it.
Do they generally contribute the 5,000 after we already put in 15,000?
Yes.
Okay. And knowing inflation, I anticipate
we go to them.
Not be cheaper.
They're not going to get any. Yeah, they don't get any cheaper. But we've been using the same group for so long that they kind of know, hey, this is the size of it hasn't gone up in a long time.
Right.
And we have to go to the city and make this same request. We go to the city and say, hey, we'd like you guys to contribute the $5,000 to the firework fund. They usually set aside money for that in their budgeting. I know that they went back and forth on it this year and whether they were going to or not, they did. So this is the process it sort of goes through.
Any other discussion or questions?
Going from here, I did make a motion to approve the 20,000
Mhm.
for the grant. So I guess we can move forward with the vote.
Yep. Unless there's any other discussion items from anybody? No? All right, we have a motion. Oh, go ahead. Are you still trying to?
Formulate my comments, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna vocalize I want to give the full funding. If we can only give 20 and it means another request in another conversation, I'm okay with that.
I guess I have one question for Janice, if you want to answer it or not. What is the timeline that you really need your funding by?
So we have offset our fiscal year from the port's fiscal year specifically so that we can project what is going to be available in the port's budget with grant requests. So our calendar, we're on a calendar year fiscal year. So the end of our year is December 31st.
All right. Well, we have a motion on the table in a second. Is there any further discussion?
I like the 20.
I'm
with that.
all right. All in favor of giving Janice $20,000?
Just because we're on Zoom, let's do a roll call vote on it.
All right. Carrie Ann.
Commissioner Nats?
Yes.
Sorry, give me one moment. Commissioner Tweet?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
And Vice President Clute?
Aye. All right. It looks like the grant request has passed and been approved. Moving on to item number 6, the general manager report. What you got for us, Jeremiah?
Let's see. Like I've seen, the Christmas lights have made their way up to Toll House Park. We've been getting lots of good feedback on that. Everybody is happy to see them. I am one of them. I very much enjoy leaving town and seeing them on my way in and out. I like it. So we're excited about that. They're going to be turned on at 6 p.m. on the day after Thanksgiving, which is a throwback to a previous tradition when they used to come on. We started moving it to the first week in December, trying to fit within some of the other programming that was done in the Gorge. But as long as we're not really throwing any sort of special event this year, let's turn them on when we always have. There is a grassroots effort that's taking hold to be there at 6 p.m. On the day after Thanksgiving. So there will be folks gathered in the parking lot of Bridgeside. Unfortunately, they won't be open. It sounds like they're making an effort to get. What's that?
So the weather's supposed to be nice too.
Yes. They're trying to make an effort to get hot chocolate down there. It's a group of citizens that are all trying to make something happen down there for this lighting event. So we're really excited about that and glad that that's taken hold. I've met with and have been meeting with Mark Troutman and Jetty Light. The Sternwheeler engines are still on track to take delivery the last week in January. So now we are tentatively planning to dry dock in February. Much of your guys's February, or excuse me, maybe some of your December and much of your January will be around this discussion, along with the strategic business plan, along with the fact we're going to start getting into budgeting, along with. So this first part of the year is going to be very busy. Quick update from Extapa. I don't have a timeline from them, but they are still working with plumbers and other subcontractors to get the work done inside of Extapa. Hopefully I can have a direct conversation with him. Mark had said that he was in Mexico this week. So touch base with him next week and have a better update for you on that. I have 2 openings in the toll booth and 1 in maintenance. Both of the toll booth positions are part-time positions, and we would love to have some new faces at the port. and also a maintenance position that's opening up with Parker moving into the operations role. We've traditionally canceled the last meeting in December, just based on the fact that it's the holidays and people start traveling and these meetings get tougher. I'll leave that up for some discussion for you guys. We have some fairly large things that we're trying to tackle right now, so I know I could get some stuff in front of you that you need to hear and that I will need decisions on. But it is traditionally the 19th, the last meeting of December, we cancel that. It's hard to get everybody together. Everybody's minds are somewhere else usually. It's something we've done in previous years. Didn't make the agenda tonight, but is up for discussion if you guys want to make a motion on it, or if we just want to keep plowing forward, I'm good with that as well.
I'll be in town. I have no concerns attending if we need to get some business taken care of.
Yeah, I'll be in town as well, so I'm not opposed to either decision the commission likes.
The 19th?
The 19th, right?
I'll
Correct.
be here.
Okay, great. And we finally got a break this coming week, which is nice. It's been meeting after meeting after meeting for you guys, so I appreciate that. Got an update from Ann Medenbach. If you look in your packet, she shot us over some information from CoStar and LoopNet. She continues to get good exposure. She feels like she's getting some traction on our websites. She didn't have any specific conversations to reference that she wanted me to bring to you guys, but that the aerospace contact she had has gone quiet. So the search continues for a Flex 6 tenant. This continues to be high on our priority list.
When on that, like, when do we have to start making these tough decisions about like reallocating some of our grant money toward making payments on it, or buying down some of the loan on it, or even tough discussions about dividing it and making it more manageable sizes to rent out?
Soon. So we're doing I'm moving some funds around on the backside around the 2.4 that we had in the business park, making those funds available to you guys, not to have to necessarily be spent in the business park. It's something we'll look at here probably after the first of the year. Even if we were to use those funds for something, we likely wouldn't use them to pay down Flex 6. Flex 6 has such a good interest rate on it that even if we paid it down and refinanced it, we wouldn't be doing ourselves much good. So we'll be looking at other ways to either create revenue sources, which you guys have talked about previously, whether it's a campground or some other project, or paying down some of our more high interest loans. So some of the smaller Flex buildings and potentially Flex 5. We're not there yet, but we are getting close. That's without a doubt. We're going to have to take a look at that.
Okay.
To that, would we be able to have at least 1 to 2 or multiple discussions about it before we need to make?
Oh, that one's going to be a heavy lift. That
Okay.
one's going to Flex 6 and the necessity that is Flex 6 and what you guys do out in the business. Yeah, that's a heavy lift. That'll be multiple discussions, probably work session stuff.
Good.
I'm
Sorry.
concerned about it eating away at our budget that we didn't really budget for, having to make these payments.
We budgeted to make the payments. We just expected that there'd be revenue coming in.
All right.
Brittany's making great progress towards the employee handbook. We're excited to bring that to you. It's been a long time since it's been revisited. It's going to take us in a direction that we've talked about previously, which is the 410 schedule for the port. But we want to have that in place. I think that's all I have for you guys tonight.
All right. Well, and last but not least, we've got the
oh, you know what? There was one thing I wanted to comment on. It's really small, but Parametrics left. They good. I think they misspoke when they said that the previous commission wanted to cut trees down. Todd Moore has a very, very intimate relationship with every tree in this park, knows it like the back of his hand, what its problem is, whether it's disease, whether it's got limbs that need to come down. And so I think Brittany, I think all of us sort of chuckled when they said the trees, lots and lots of debate around trees coming down. So that was not, I think they just got Todd on some of those ones, and Todd was able to speak to the trees so much about, oh yeah, that one can come down. That one's going to need to come down in 10 years anyway. That one's got diseases in it. So they did very much see the green space in the trees a lot like this commission.
Gotcha. Good to know. Yeah, and I know we had discussed that, but I would be curious to see like where we could get budget to move forward with it, if it's something we even want to move forward with, like when do we start those discussions?
Yeah, that's really the whole thing with this is like, where does something like that fit within your guys' strategic business plan? Do you see that as something that brings enough economic development to the town that it overrides the other things we'd be doing with the park? Not really ever questions we got through on this project. But sort of the fun stuff that I want you guys to be involved with going forward. I mean, there's no doubt that project was exciting and interesting and something worth consideration. But when there's no follow up on, oh, how do we fund that 3.6 and how long ago should we have started on that, and what's the next steps that kind of the next steps that we've struggled with to support before.
How did it even come to fruition in the first place? Was it just like a random grant out there that we got to hire this company for vision stuff?
So I'll somewhat default to Brittany on that because this project is longer than my tenure is, and it's an interesting one. It's a pool of funds through the Federal Highway Administration that's being administrated by ODOT. Whether it was an actual grant, Brittany?
Yeah, I actually, this project predates me also, so I don't have my eyes on where the original funding came from. We've just been slowly picking at it and using it up, but I can open up our files tomorrow and get you guys more information on that.
Just
Melissa
curiosity,
Melissa might know. She said, Melissa.
Yeah, hi. Actually, this goes back way back. I have a lot of information on it. We started it with the under the railroad to make it bigger and stuff for that. We got a huge grant for that, and the railroad would not do it. And then they said, okay, you can spend it maybe on the overpass over it. And then it got, no, you can't do that. And so a balance of this money has been sitting around for some time. And they finally said that we could spend the balance of that money, and the money's going through ODOT. The money, we haven't actually touched a dollar of it. The money's all gone through it. The money went to ODOT and ODOT's been spending it. So they spent the balance on this map of a plan, but we never talked about how we were going to pay for it. We spent years working on it, and I think it was just, in all honesty, it started, I think, just a way to use up that money because they weren't going to let us use it on anything else. So I guess the new commission would have to decide if that's what you want to do, or later, or
that's that one's going to go on the back burner for a while until we get our strategic business plan created and out there. Thanks for that.
And this goes way back before all that stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for the history.
You bet.
All right, Jeremiah, anything else on your general manager report?
I'll throw one more thing out there. I skipped over on it. That working with Moss Adams, we got another step closer on moving forward on the strategic business plan. So she will be reaching out in the next 5 to 10 days to set up interviews with you, just to discuss on what your thoughts of the port are, the direction you see it going. I also have a timeline that I got earlier today. I'll send that out. That'll start formulating how this is all going to go, and we'll be looking at putting a calendar together soon for January. And the workshops that we'll need to do with Moss Adams, deciding where we want to have them. That piece is all starting to come together.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving on from the general manager report over to commissioner comments. We can start off with Albert.
Cool, thanks everyone. I wanted actually to start, I'm glad it wasn't on today's agenda since Brad wasn't here, but regarding the joint session that we just had, I found it super enlightening. I thought it was a great step forward, a great first step for working with the city. I definitely am very interested in a couple of those next steps and talking points that came out of that session, specifically around either Main Street and or Chamber of Commerce or whatever that happens to be, and how the city itself can update any of the coding or planning, and how we can be involved with helping to essentially upgrade and revisit, revitalize the downtown corridor. So again, I'm glad it wasn't on this session since Brad wasn't here, because I know he has a lot of words and passion about those items. But I hope to see that on a future agenda. Regarding the budget, there's obviously there was a lot of questions around the budget, specifically as it related to the museum. But knowing that Q3 just ended, I would be interested to see if there's any sort of quarterly report that we could get from the port to see where we're at for the first couple of months, July, August, September, so we can see how we're tracking for the budget, the fiscal budget so far this year. Jeremiah, you went off mute, so I anticipate you having comment on that.
I hope to have something for you guys in January on that. That's on my list of very important to-dos. It's our Q2, but yes, it's time for you guys to be getting at least a quarterly report on that, at least.
Okay, great. Third thing that I have is I just want to say that I am very excited for the personnel and their respective futures, whether they're at the port or not. I just want to say thank you, and I'm excited for everyone. And some people specifically on this call. And finally, I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. If you're traveling, may your delays be minimal and your time well spent. And for anyone staying home, may you find it relaxing and filled with potatoes of every variety.
Vodka? I'm just kidding.
It's a variety of potato.
Thank you, Albert. Rob, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I thought the joint session meeting with the city and the port last week was one we haven't had in a while, and is insightful, and kind of helped us prioritize what things were our values. So I'm looking forward to continuing those conversations with the city and how we can work better. One of the things I think I suggested for both sides is to get better visibility on the next 12 months of spending. And like Albert said, just having these kind of quarterly financial reports would kind of give us some ideas going forward in future meetings, what we can spend, what we can't spend. So I would like to recommend that. It is holiday week, so I hope everybody has a great holiday. And I think, yeah, next month there is I think December 9th is going to be an event, the Cascade Locks Hometown Christmas event. And also that'll be a gorgeous beer. And then there's also an event at the same night at Ale House. And I believe Thunder Ireland also has some holiday bizarre things going on. So there's a number of things going on. So take a look on Facebook and keep up on that. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great holiday.
Thanks, Rob. All right, Pam, over to you.
I am in the same boat with Albert and Rob too, about wishing port employees all the best. The one thing I want to say about that is the port family has suffered a very turmoil year. This has been a hard year, lots of hardships in different ways for the port family. So I just want to acknowledge that I see what everybody has done, and I'm so thankful for all the hard work and the camaraderie within the port to make it a family atmosphere. it's a pretty special place I'm learning, and I'm glad to be a part of it in any aspect that I can. And I wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving, and sending lots of love and light and kindness to everyone in the community. I also am very excited about the city meeting. I thought that was a great first step. It's inspiring to get us all in the same room because like I said, I think we all have a strong interest to make our town better, maybe in different ways, but that's a good common denominator between all of us. And it's very exciting to be a part of that too. And also thank you, Carrie, for taking over, and all of the commissioners for their time. Jeremiah, you're awesome as always, and Carrie Ann and Brittany and Janice, thank you for being on the call. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanks, Pam. I echo most of Pam's sentiments and Rob's and Albert's, so I don't want to repeat myself with everything, but I did want to say one of some of the, the port and city joint meeting was really interesting. We didn't have enough time to really dive in too deep on a lot of things. So, I think some topics may have been missed. We don't really have our strategic business plans out yet either. So there were some comments made. I know I needed to stay off the socials and stuff, but just to counter some of the comments that were out there saying that the port doesn't want to bring high paying jobs to Cascade Locks. That is absolutely not true. We still have industrial space. We still have ability to build more of those smaller flex buildings down the road, and that could very well be part of our small business plan. The focus of the port and city joint meeting was very much on the tourism side, but the port's job is to do economic development, and I think we can balance it between tourism and other industry. So just want to throw that out there, that the assumptions aren't always true. To put people's minds at ease if they are on and listening. So that's really it, but I really hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday, enjoys their long weekend. We all deserve it. And I appreciate everybody's time. All right, so I think that's it for commissioner comments. I think that we are at the end of our agenda today. Do I have a motion and a second to end the meeting, adjourn the meeting?
I understand there's no executive session tonight, right?
That's
No,
correct.
correct.
Okay, I motion to end the meeting.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 All right, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk again in the next month.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Carrie Ann, for working on your dissertation.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie Ann.
Thank you for letting me go.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Bye.
Bye.